Good evening and welcome to the Civil Service Commission meeting of February 27, 2008. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Here.
Commissioner Coleman?
Here.
Here. Commissioner Carrion?
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Gaddis is absent.
It's our understanding that he is just running a little bit late. He should be here any minute. Next, reading of the minutes.
Reading of the minutes?
Thank you. What's your pleasure?
Move for approval. Second.
And dispense with reading?
Dispense with reading. Second.
Okay, motion and second. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Carrion?
Yes. Next.
All communications.
Mr. Giantes, I'll read what's in here. All communication discussion is limited to the items not as a part of this agenda. Each speaker will limit it to 5 minutes. Commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decisions. I have two cards. It's Carol Welling. Oh, I'm sorry. Bruce Philpott. And number 8. Okay, so there are no cards for oral communications. What's next?
Eligible list established.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the item before you are the eligible lists that have been established since our last meeting. As you can see from the report, there are 10 lists that have been established, some open, some promotional. You can see some of them have very high numbers of applications received, reflecting the examinations that are conducted by our staff. Again, in the report has the number of applications received, and then in the far right column, the total number on who've made it to the eligibility list. If you have any questions in this report, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? I have a question. Mr. Earl, is it normal for the fire in the other fire departments to have almost 1,000 applications and less than 10% actually make it? Do you know the statistics in other cities?
I really couldn't answer that relative to how other cities do it. This was a smaller applicant pool than we're used to dealing with. We've had as many as 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 in previous and much larger lists. We do have a requirement for EMT certificate, which cuts out a lot of people who aren't necessarily serious about the career. But yeah, this is a smaller group, and eligibility list of 74 is small for us. So probably an indication that we'll be doing this again probably within a year.
Any other questions?
Sir.
Next, please.
Revised class specification for approval, tree trimming series.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a revision of the class specification for tree trimmer. This is a series that we have, and this is really an update of an existing class specification. The last time this was updated was 2001. There's a few minor changes, one of which having to do with the requirement that the candidates have some basic computer skills, because my understanding is there's a database which tracks all the parkway trees throughout the city, and those who are involved in the trimming, removal of trees are having to keep track on the database, and they need to have some basic computer skills. We're also making a desirable qualification, a certification at the entry-level position for certification by the International Society of Arboriculture. Along with that, there are a few other minor changes, just simply to update the series. And have any questions on that, be happy to answer them. Rosie Akopian from my staff is here to answer any questions if you have any.
Mr. Coleman.
It's not a question, it's basically a comment with what has occurred in our city in the very recent past. I'm surprised that there's nothing in here that, with regards to the requirements or experience, that the individuals have some knowledge of trees that are indigenous to the city of Glendale.
Yeah, that's an excellent point to be raised at this point, but the staff...
I'm not saying that in jest. I mean,
I
if you
know.
have a tree trimmer hacking down, indigenous trees, you're going to have Sam Ingalls to deal with, and it should be included.
We could add that as a knowledge, skill, or ability. The staff, they're generally well aware of which trees are indigenous and which are not.
Okay.
The controversy that had occurred that we've all been aware of had to do with a private tree trimming crew coming in
Right.
and removing them, and some of the enforcement measures that had taken effect by other branches of the city. But if it's the Commission's desire, we can certainly add that to the list of knowledges, skills, and abilities, something along the lines of knowledge of indigenous tree ordinance and awareness of indigenous tree species through the city, something along those lines.
Okay. One other question I have, and specifically deals with the position of tree trimmer,
Yes.
which is the entry level. And it states that some of these positions may temporarily act as lead worker on a small crew and/or act as arborist crew supervisor, and yet they're not even they're not arborists. They're not even certified. That's a desired qualification.
They are requesting they've made it a desirable qualification to
Correct.
get the certification, but that's...
But you could have somebody that, hypothetically, according to this, that's worked as a tree trimmer, God knows where, for 2 years and has been paid for it, and all of a sudden he's running a crew.
That's correct.
So it's something to think about.
Yeah, it's...
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners.
One question, one comment before you actually go on. Matt, do we really need that sentence there at all? If the supervisor is not there, somebody's got to act as a supervisor for 1 day. Do we need to actually mention that in here?
We may not. Again, there's
Not something
three
that,
levels here: tree trimmer, senior tree trimmer, and I think in most cases it's the senior tree trimmer that's likely going to be acting in the absence of a supervisor. But we'll see if Rosie has anything to add.
Rosie Kopian, good evening. You're absolutely right, Commissioner Bakarian. It's just meant as a backup in case, a crew is working and the supervisor isn't present, and a more experienced tree trimmer would be able to supervise the work of maintenance workers or other tree trimmers. So it's not meant to be, like a permanent assignment of any type.
I understand
And it
that.
also gives them the ability to gain some supervisory lead work type of experience in order to progress in the ranks of the series. And I wasn't around when the language was put in, but I can suppose that may be why, to give them that ability to then, if someone's been a tree trimmer for several years and has acted as that lead worker or the backup person for quite some time, it gives them that experience justification to promote crew supervisor.
Well, one would think that the senior tree trimmer would be doing that as opposed to
Right.
somebody that has 2 years' experience trimming trees.
And that's correct. I mean, the senior would be the obvious first person. The thing about the series is that the city doesn't have very many tree trimming crews anymore. Years ago, they had lots of them. Now the ranks here are pretty thin. So you could have potentially a situation where there's a very small crew working a particular street, and there's just a relatively new person having to run that crew.
Is most of the tree trimming that's actually done in the city subcontracted?
Yes, it is.
Well, I'll say
Most or
the
some?
Glendale Water and Power subcontracts all their tree trimming responsibilities. They have responsibilities for all tree trimming in and around power lines, and no one's allowed to go around those unless you have special training. But these folks, as I understand, are those that this is in Public Works, and they do a lot of subcontracting for some big jobs and what they can't accomplish with their own crews. But this is all parkway trees, as I
Correct.
understand.
There is a contractor that does like the main cyclical maintenance, but the crews do more the emergency call-outs and trees that are dying that may need to be removed and replaced, and maintenance rather than the big maintenance, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Overall maintenance, yeah.
All righty.
Commissioner Coleman, do you want to replace that language? You want to strike it, or do you want to just leave it as is?
Well, like Ms. Akopian said, she wasn't around when this was written, initially back in 2001 or 2003. And if it's a small crew,
Yes, not to interrupt, but there may be occasions when a tree trimmer is going to be the most experienced person able to run a crew. If someone is out sick or in the absence of a supervisor.
I don't want to tie anybody's hand. I just wanted to raise my concern, and if a situation arises where there's nobody else, what are you going to do?
I think you can just, Roy, that's an act that a supervisor has a right to appoint someone for a period of time, saying, hey, why don't you supervise, I'll be right back, and just, to write it down makes it seem like you're going someone who has 2 years. Whatever you guys want to do, it doesn't really matter. It makes no difference in the whole scheme of things. Mr. Coleman? Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
What would you like to do?
I think we'll just leave it as it is.
Okay.
Giving it some thought, it does give a tree trimmer an opportunity, if it comes up, to temporarily act as a lead worker, which is going to be an advancement towards senior tree trimmer. So I just basically wanted to know what the scope of, the number of people that were actually in these classifications, and Matt and you have said it's a relatively small group, and a lot of the work is subcontracted out. All of the work for DWP is contracted out, so it's not a major issue as I perceive it now.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chair, and I'll go ahead and contribute some language relative to the indigenous tree ordinance, if you'd like to
Yes.
consider that. And this would be under the knowledge, skills, and abilities.
Okay.
Just knowledge of the city's indigenous tree ordinance and ability to recognize indigenous trees within the city's urban forest.
That works for me.
Anyone else? Chairman Gantis is here, so I'm going to pass on the...
No, you started this item. Why don't you complete the item?
Okay.
So I didn't hear the whole
I'm
discussion.
sorry. Okay, any other comments? Any motion?
Move to approve with the revisions?
Second. Motion and a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian,
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian,
Yes.
Chair Gantis.
Abstain. Next.
Revised class specification for approval, engineering survey series.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is, again, an update of an existing class specification where we have some changes to the series. And again, this involves the survey series, or the engineering survey series, as we call it. There are minor changes at each level, but I think the most significant change in this series is the removal of entire classification, this assistant survey technician. This was a classification once proposed as sort of a trainee, really entry-level type job, which it's never really quite caught on, and we're proposing instead that be removed, in that the other levels within the series be, the experience requirement be adjusted accordingly in order to reflect what the new series would be constituted. So we'll have then survey technician, which would be more of the entry-level position, senior survey technician, and then the party chief. Some of the other changes asking for involve the high school level, college level trigonometry, mechanical drawing, all of which be important for any level within this series. And again, there are other minor changes sprinkled throughout this series. If you have any questions, again, I'd be happy to answer them. Once again, this is one that Ms. Akopian worked on. And we also have the survey supervisor, Mark Price, from Public Works is here.
Mr. Doyle, are you telling me that we are reducing the number of positions in the government?
Absolutely. Thought you would be happy about that.
August of 2008, I will have been on this commission for 9 years, if I'm here. And I have never, this is a first for me. I'm very pleased. You're right, I am pleased. Where is this, you indicated do we require anywhere in here a degree in either trigonometry or mechanical engineering or anything like that?
No.
No, this is, again, a field position largely, although it's a very...
The supervisor levels is more what I'm looking at.
Oh, the super...
And I agree you can't on an entry level, but that we start getting in, are these... No. Thank you.
There is no college degree required at any level within the series.
Any other questions or comments? What is your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Devine,
Yes.
Mr. Menuchyan,
Yes.
Commissioner Perrin,
Yes.
Chair Ganters.
Yes. What is next?
Report on hourly employment.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a report that we do twice a year to address the status of hourly employment here at the City of Glendale. The point of this report and the point of this issue is to ensure that we reduce or eliminate situations where hourly employees, at-will hourly employees working throughout the city are not working at full-time or near full-time hours. As you recall, several years ago, we had a problem with this, had an abundance of positions that were in that situation. As you recall, several measures were taken to help mitigate this problem, the most significant being the imposition of a limit of 1,250 hours per fiscal year of any hourly employees. And in addition to that and several other measures, we have been able to reduce the number of hourly employees working those types of hours. What we have done, again, is we bring this back twice a year, once sort of at the midpoint of the fiscal year, which is now, and again at the end of the fiscal year, and give you a report of how many employees have reached that 1,250-hour time frame. Obviously, at the midpoint of the year, there's not going to be very many, and that's what we have in this case here. There are just two. Both of these have received the exemption from Ms. Beers in the city manager's office. One involves a police communications operator who has worked 1,268 hours as of February 5th. The other is a city resource specialist position in the Public Works Department who has worked 1,264 hours as of February 5th. Both of these positions did receive special exemptions from the manager's office, and they both have their unique circumstances as to why they've acquired this many hours and why they've received an exemption. In the case of the police communications position, that's an area where we traditionally have many vacancies, and it's a 24/7 operation that has to have qualified people there. And the individual who has racked up these hours is is, again, working, filling in for people, and really meeting a need for the city. By the way, there are currently 7 vacancies within our police dispatch operation. That's out of a total budgeted workforce of about 24. So it's a critical problem, which we're working on. We do year-round recruitment for that, but still, it's really hard to find qualified people who can make it through that process. The second employee is a city resource specialist, Public Works Department. This is essentially a civil engineer type of person, and he's working on a special project over by the public service yard, DreamWorks, that area. They're building a off-ramp at the intersection of the 5 and the 134 freeway. Once this project is complete, we anticipate that this employee's services would no longer be needed. So therefore, it's being kept as an hourly at-will position. As I said, the report that we do on this at the end of the fiscal year, which will be in August, will be a lot more telling as far as just how many people have reached this 1,250-hour threshold. But as for now, we're on a good pace to see a reduction in those numbers. So with that, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Do we need to take action on this, Mr. Braden?
No.
Okay. We will receive, and we've reviewed and received the report. No other questions. What is next, please?
Report on fire department outreach efforts.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item was requested by the Commission back in December. There was a question that came up regarding the city's efforts to reach out to various sectors of the community, and we have gotten together with the fire department and put together a presentation on the city's outreach recruitment efforts. This is something that we like to do, and I think we should be doing at least on an annual basis to make sure that you're aware of what efforts the staff is making, and specifically the fire department and their staff are to improve our outreach. I'll preface this whole presentation by saying that we certainly are not where we would like to be relative to having a workforce that is fully diverse and fully representative of the community we serve, but you will see that a great deal of efforts have been made, both by human resources and certainly by the hard work of the fire department in taking these efforts. As you know, this is a very, very hard position to fill. There's lots of competition, lots of steps in the process, and it's just a very challenging process one way, all the ways you look at it. So with that, we do have a number of people from the fire department here. Deputy Chief Harold Scoggins will be making the presentation. Also, Interim Chief Don Biggs is here, as well as Deputy Chief Steve Howard. So with that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chief Scoggins, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. We were asked, as Matt Doyle said, to bring you up to date on our recruitment and outreach efforts over the past year, and I'm going to do that. And basically what we're going to look at this evening is our recruitment efforts and our local GFD outreach, our current programs that we have. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the firefighter preparation recruitment workshop that took place in December. Then we're just going to look at the hard numbers, the stats and the results. And then we'll conclude with talking about what we see as our challenges and our next steps in the process. So our efforts, we've always done what we call traditional efforts, advertising in all the local newspapers, word of mouth, the information gets around when the fire department's hiring, and the professional publications, as well as the City of Glendale website. Some of the newer contemporary ways that we think we're going after it is with the Glendale Fire Department website and the information that's added on there, as well as an interest card. What happens is when a prospective recruit for firefighter, cadet, or explorer has an interest, we actually have a link on the website where they can fill out an interest card and place it in the mailbox. So what we did was we contacted all those people who had filled out interest cards and sent them an email and let them know either the firefighter recruit position was open, the fire cadet position was open, or the fire explorer position. We advertised in the Women in the Fire Service bulletins and on firecareers.com. That's a professional website, and to give you a little understanding there, it's kind of like a blog website. Members can sign up, and they'll let you know when different fire departments are testing. The person will pick the region, and if it's Southern California, they'll let you know via email or a postcard when whatever fire department that you select in whatever region is testing. We advertise on there. Our concentrated Glendale-specific areas is we spend time in the Glendale Unified School District at the career fairs, along with the Verdugo Job Centers. We visit the local high schools at lunchtime to do recruitment for our Explorer programs, and Deputy Chief Howard works with the Character and Ethics Projects on an alternative to suspension programs where the kids come to the fire station one Saturday a month, and he talks a little bit about the fire service as well as trying to bring them back into alignment with what the expectations are for the students. We participated in the Glendale Community College Career Fairs, Job Expos in Glendale and Burbank, which are pretty local, Higher Vet Expos, and California Professional Firefighters is the state organization, and they've taken an active approach in this, and they held last May Women in the Fire Service Expo down in Orange County, and we sent a person down there to represent us and see what we can do in that area. Some of the local business organizations and service clubs that we've made presentation to, the Minutemen, the Armenian American Chamber of Commerce has been a friend, and I'll talk about that a little bit more because the fruit has come to bear on one of the projects that we had going there, Women for Hire, the Armenian Independence event, and our newly formed relationship with the Glendale Sunrise Rotary Club, and I'll talk a little bit about that coming up. In Glendale, in the fire station, we have fire career and info nights. December 15th, I think it was, we held about a 5-hour seminar, and I'll go in more in depth on that. But that really gives the prospective candidates an idea of what they really need to do to get in tune to become a firefighter. If it starts today, it may take a little while, but they shouldn't leave that event and not know what to expect to be prepared. Some of the local TV shows that we've appeared on, Channel 26, 31, and 55, going after some local recruitment there. And some of the sponsored events, we've set booths up for recruitment at Unity Fest and Cruise Night and different things like that. This year, Glendale Fire Department and Glendale Sunrise Rotary Club partnered and sponsored 4 students to the Verdugo Fire Academy that's held through Glendale Community College. And what happens with that and how those funds were raised is the Glendale Fire Department Awards Luncheon, all the proceeds from that event went to sponsor local students to that fire academy who were not able to attend because of financial constraints. So through those partnerships, we were able to sponsor partial scholarships for 4 students to that academy. And I think that's really important because we did that several years ago, partnering with the Armenian American Chamber of Commerce, and now one of those people that we sponsored approximately 4 years ago is now a Glendale firefighter paramedic who's now on probation. So we know that works, and by providing opportunities for people, we think that in a few years those fruits will come to bear. One of our current programs is the Hoover High Public Safety Academy, and that's a program at Hoover High, and we partner with the Glendale Police Department on that, and it's a fire department and police department-based curriculum where we target the students in a career path, and they learn about the fire service as well as the police department, and we try to target those kids into our Explorer programs. And we think that's really valuable because, we're trying to change their judgment and help them make good decisions at a young age by putting some positive mentors in the school. And right now it's set up on an academy, but in the end I'll talk about what we're going to recommend to Glendale Unified to expand it to all the high schools. Our current programs that we have in the Glendale Fire Department, we have a Fire Explorer program, and it was established in 1987 in its current form. Before that, it was in an ROP form. And just to give you an example of the excitement that's with that program, we have just recently had an orientation last Saturday, and we had 54 young people and come and apply for the position of Fire Explorer. And there will be an application process, there will be a testing process, a mini physical abilities exam to see where they're at physically, and we'll take them through a few steps to see who's really ready to be a Fire Explorer. And our cadet program was established in 2003. It's been a very positive program for our fire department, and several of our fire cadets have gotten hired in other fire departments in the Southern California area. To talk a little bit about our workshop that we held. What we went over at that workshop was we wanted to give the candidates a real understanding of the entire process, and I think it was important that we spent the time doing that, not in a rushed environment, had plenty of time for questions and answers. We opened it up with the civil service testing process because a lot of times people may not understand the process of the civil service testing process. So Ms. Honanian came and she spoke on that to the group. We reviewed the written exam. We asked for a representative of the exam testing company to fly down from Sacramento and give the recruits or the prospective recruits an understanding of how to prepare and how to study for the written exam. And she laid out a program for them on how to prepare for the written exam that we think is really important because some people may have different challenges and the written exam may be one of them. So this written exam that we chose, it had a study manual, and she told them how to do it, told them how to study for the exam, gave them examples of if you study this many hours per week before the written exam, the percentages are you will score like this. And we thought that was really valuable. We talked about the oral interview, how to prepare for the oral, what the expectations are, the panel makeup, some of the things that we're looking for in our prospective firefighters. We had a fitness trainer come in and talked about physical and mental fitness because that's so important. It's really a shame when a candidate takes it all the way through and gets into the academy and they're not physically prepared or mentally prepared for the grind that takes place in the 12 to 14 week academy. We have one of our background investigators come up and tell them what the expectations are in the background investigation, how the information you need to have prepared, or what we're looking for, it's just what our mindset is for bringing in future firefighters. And then we had one of the past academy staff come in to talk about the past academy that we just graduated, because it's important for them to have that perspective on what the real fire academy is like, because you never really know until you go in it. So we wanted to provide them all the opportunities to ask questions, talk to people, have the one-on-one conversations. There was plenty of firefighters at that event. I told them to find someone and connect with them and just learn a little bit more about it. And these were some of the speakers we had. As you can see, Ms. Honanian's up there and had a great time there with all the future recruits, hopefully. There's a little bit about our statistics.
Chief Scoggins, there are some questions up here, and
Yes.
I looked for a natural break, and I think we've gone from the efforts to the statistics.
Yes.
Is that a good time? So I want to get some questions out, okay?
Yes.
Commissioner Karen, you had some questions?
First of all, approximately how much is it to go through the academy?
Through the Verdugo Fire Academy, it's approximately $2,000.
And that money that the four that were put through by Glendale Sunrise Rotary / GFD was money that's what you paid, $2,000 per individual. Is that the right?
We paid partial scholarships, and they range from $250 to $750 per student depending on their needs, and one student was given a set of turnouts, which is the firefighting gear that we wear, and he's actually one of our explorers who's local.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Carey, continue.
And is there like a spend a day at the academy invitation or something so people will really understand what they're getting themselves into?
You mean for people who are trying to move forward towards that way of becoming a firefighter? That's not something that we've done in the past, because if you can imagine, that could become a bit challenging for the academy staff to have that many people if it's a very busy day watching their operations and it's a really tight environment.
Okay. And in the contemporary site, is there a specific reason why you targeted only fire-specific, women in fire service bulletins are great for people who are just really already are very focused on just this one job, but when we go to different website or different sources for people who might not be so focused on fire but might actually be interested in fire once we get it. I was talking to a lieutenant from the Glendale Police Department who's a female, and she said that she wasn't actually initially attracted to the police department, but actually saw it through a different website and different sources. So that's something that I think we should also explore of contemporary other websites that are not specifically focused on just one site.
Duly noted, we will do that.
I'm nothing.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Devine.
First of all, I want to say outstanding presentation so far, well organized. We really appreciate it. A couple of quick questions. The information you've given us so far is what I would call for general recruitment, to just get people into the fire department. And looking at the stats, and we'll get into that in a minute, we see there are certain areas that are underrepresented, whether they're ethnic or gender. So my question is, what do you do to target underrepresented people in the department other than the general recruitment? Do you have something where you see a deficiency in one area that you go out and actually target that? If so, how do you do that?
Commissioner Devine, can we hold that question until we get through the recruitment statistics so that we have everybody that has the information upon which to understand? In other words, we haven't gotten to the recruitment numbers yet.
Well, this is just a generic question.
Generically.
I'll give you an example of one thing that we've done in the past. We know that, for example, we don't have but one female firefighter. So for an example, one of the things that we've done in the past is we have sent our flyers and emails and different things like that to every women's athletic department, college athletic department in Southern California and the surrounding areas, because we figured, okay, well, what does it take to really do the job? What's one of the things that it takes? And as you see, as we move through the stats, you'll see what the breaking point kind of is. It's the physical abilities exam. So we saw that as a need, so we sent out information to every women's athletic department on the 03-05 recruitment in Southern California. So that was a specific and it was a targeted approach there, and trying to yield a result there.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just I wanted there to be but that's good. That was general. Let's go on to the statistics now. Unless there's anybody else that has any burning questions that can't wait. Proceed. Because I think these are the statistics are extremely important.
Right, and we believe so too. For the 03 and 05, between 03 and 05, we had 2 fire academies.
Which ones were those? Let's be specific on those. The Verdugo Fire Academy and Rio Hondo, is that?
Well, we do Tri-City. The last 2 academies were Tri-City academies, were 05 to 07, and the 03-05 academies were Glendale.
Mr. Chair, let me clarify. These are the academies that we have tested people and put them through. These are our academies. Chief Scoggins discussed the Verdugo Academy, which is something that someone can put themselves through to prepare them for a career.
Themselves. I apologize.
And I also wanted to clarify when he said $2,000. That's again, if someone wants to do that on their own, pay the money, get themselves better prepared for this type of a process, they can do that. And as he said, we've been very good about getting sponsorships and different community groups to help pay for those. But just make it clear, when we do a recruitment process and hire people through the various categories there and ultimately hire a group of candidates, we send them through the academy. There is no cost to the candidate at that point. These are our academies, generally.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, and I'll give you a little more understanding on the difference between the two, the Community College Academy versus the City of Glendale Fire Academy. The Community College Academies are built as student learning environments. You're learning about a profession, so that's just a fundamental difference. You're really taking the time and you're learning. In class, you're getting a grade, you're getting semester hours. The Verdugo or the Tri-City Fire Academy or the Glendale Fire Department Fire Academy is a profession. It's a job. I mean, you're expected to be at a certain level when you get in that academy, and we're going to bring you up from that certain level. And it's a quite different pace, and I only can say that because I was an instructor at El Camino College Fire Academy, and I've done 2 of our fire academies as a fire captain. So the pace is quite different because the environment's different, because the expectations are different. Important to understand those differences there.
Just have one question.
Yes, Commissioner.
I'm a little confused again on the academies. They pass one of the academies, that's all they need to get into Glendale Fire? They can go to any one of these? Or how does the hierarchy work on these academies?
You don't need to pass one of the community college academies to be eligible to be hired as a firefighter recruit for the City of Glendale. It's what a lot of prospective firefighters do to prepare themselves so they have an understanding of really what they're getting themselves into. It can be anywhere from 14-week to semester-long to the Verdugo Fire Academy is approximately a 9-month-long academy, and it's 2 or 3 nights a week and every weekend for about 9 months. And they do that to help prepare themselves
For the academy?
for the fire academy.
I have a question, just to make sure I understand. I can go to the fire academy and pay $2,000 and say, I want to go through the academy even though I don't have a job yet.
Verdugo.
It's a college class.
Verdugo.
It's through the college.
Oh,
It's
through the
Verdugo-
college,
right.
I can do that.
Right.
And once I actually go through the academy and I finish the academy, if I come and apply for the Glendale Fire Department and I actually pass every single processes, do I become a firefighter then, or do I have to go through the academy again?
You have to go through the academy again. You have to go through the Glendale Fire Department Fire Academy.
Which is different than
The
what they've
community
gone through.
college. Right.
I
The
think
community college academy is you register for a class.
But I think the best way to say it is Verdugo Academy is part of, if you were in college and you wanted to go to law school, you might go to a business law class in college. That doesn't necessarily, to be a lawyer, though, you've got to go through law school first. You can go to the Verdugo Fire Academy. It's kind of a specialized, I have an interest in the fire, and this is a little more specialized college class. But you can't become a fireman till you go through one of the academies, correct?
Right, the testing process.
So the Verdugo Academy, the Glendale firefighters go through the Verdugo Academy?
Not necessarily.
No, but could they, have they ever gone?
There may be some who went through the Verdugo Fire Academy. There may be some who went through Oxnard Community College Fire Academy or El Camino.
My understanding, okay, so now I understand. So the Verdugo Academy is not something you take once and then you come to Glendale and you go back and you take the same thing over again?
No.
Okay.
You learn Glendale specific.
I guess.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Carrion, the student academies like Verdugo or Oxnard are not nearly as challenging as the academy that, again, is run by the city once we hire folks. It's good preparation. You learn a lot of the skills, a lot of the classwork, a lot of the manipulative skills. It's a great way to get experience and become a very competitive candidate. But it's a totally different thing.
These academies here, or this is the Glendale Fire Department Academy?
Glendale Fire Department Academy.
So when you say there's 2 academies, during that period of time,
Right.
2 academies were conducted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Same academy done twice, for different
Yes.
firefighters, because it's a 2-year period.
Exactly. One may have been in '04 and one may have been in '05 or one may have been in... Exactly. So you can see the numbers. Total, we had 2,341 apply, and you can see the breakdown across the top. And that's important to note, because this is where I think that we will show progress. When you look at the number of white males who applied is 57%, African Americans 3.8%, Hispanics 30%, Asian or Pacific Islanders 5%, Armenian 1.2%, Native American Indians 1%, and people who didn't check any box 1.5%. So you can see at the end of those 2 years, that's what the net result was. We ended up hiring 16 out of that 2,300. And white males, we hired 7, which is 43%. Hispanics, 5, 31%. Asian or Pacific Islanders, 2. And Armenians, 2. So when you look at the percentages, that shows that some progress is being made along the way here.
Commissioner Upcurrent, wait, he has a question on it, as I do.
Go back to that.
Previous one.
Stan. I know we've asked for you guys to be cognizant of the hiring Armenians and the ethnic groups, but every other category goes down to a smaller number, except the Armenian goes down to 1 and then jumps back to 2.
1 passed the physical and 2 were hired.
How did that happen? Did we scream too much?
Well, I think you'll see the undeclared.
Oh, it was undeclared.
It should be 2. It's a discrepancy.
Oh, I thought it was so.
Apologize for that.
The invited.
is 2 and then
It's
passed
2.
is 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I apologize for that. Looked it over many, many times, and
Was that Manya that prepared that? Is
no,
that-
that's me. That's all me.
Okay, so it's 2, 2, and 2. This didn't make any sense to be 1 and 1, and all of a sudden you hire 2 people.
I apologize for that confusion.
All right.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
For 03 to 05, you can see the number of males versus females, and at the end, all 16 we hired were males, and we didn't hire any females. And the challenge continues to be the physical abilities exam. And near the end of the presentation, I'll walk you through so you have a bit of an understanding of what's expected at the physical abilities exam.
Hold on for just
Yes,
a
sir.
second. Oh, go ahead. Okay, continue.
So between 05 and 07, you can see we had 1,251 apply, and 683
Jeez.
white males, 49 African Americans, 376 Hispanic, and 100 Asian Pacific Islanders, 22 Armenians, 9 Native American Indians. And you can see we hired 15 from that group, from that 1,200. We hired 15. We hired 9 white males from that group, which is 60%, 4 Hispanics, and 1 Asian Pacific Islander, and 1 Armenian. So, we see we're making some improvements there. There's some growth taking place, and we recognize that, and I think the numbers show that. But once again, where we're falling short is our female firefighters. We can see that we had 51 females who applied, and once again, there were 2 who made it to the physical abilities exam, and neither one of them passed the physical abilities exam. That continues to be our stumbling. Mr. Coleman?
Chief Stoggins, I'm sorry, but you keep saying we're improving, and I evidently, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're dealing with specifically the Armenian candidates. But in 2003 to 2005, there were 88 blacks, none of them hired. 2005 to 2007, there were 49 blacks that applied, none were hired. I don't see any improvement there at all.
We have some growth to do, but in the overall makeup, we're improving. Not in one necessary specific category, but,
That's blatant,
right,
in my opinion.
you're correct.
In all the categories, actually, except in white, there was 54% applicants and 60% were hired, but on every other ethnic category, you actually dropped in the number of applicants. You actually hired 1 less guy in 2005, 2007, but the numbers dropped for Hispanic, dropped for Asians, dropped for Armenian, and so...
We're missing the 300-pound elephant. Never made it for female.
And that's one thing that...
Never made it for
I
female.
really think that we have a problem with female recruits.
Here's, we got a problem with black recruits as well.
Why don't we get on the female, let's see the physical, because...
Well, let me make a comment,
ahead,
please,
Mr.
if you don't mind, because I think that to wait and make a comment later, we might actually miss something. I see two possibilities here. One is that our physical exam women can't pass, is what this is telling me, which I beg to kind of differ, because there are women passing on all other fire departments. Two is that we need to reevaluate the physical exam and agility test that we have in the city of Glendale by bringing some other people from other departments to reevaluate to see why women aren't passing our physical agility test in the city of Glendale. Because, having an outside eye on our process might actually be something that we would need.
I think it's important to note, and your points are well taken, but it's important to note that the City of Glendale does not administer the physical ability exam. The exam that we use is called the BIDL Physical Abilities Exam, and it's administered through Mount San Antonio College is the course we use, basically. We invite all the recruits down on one day, and they all run the course together. And
Let's use something else, because it doesn't seem like it's working.
But let's find out why. Let's get some more background into why. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's hear the information.
All right.
It's all, do you want me to finish and then we go through it?
I would, but maybe...
Okay, well, I have another question before he gets into that. I just need to understand where you have a column that says appeared at written and appeared at orals, and where there's a lesser number at the orals. Does that mean that those people, all of the people that didn't appear at the orals failed the written, or some of them left?
Exactly. Yes.
Because on the next line, you show appeared at orals and passed orals, so that's clear there.
Right.
So in all these cases, the number dropped because they actually failed, not because they dropped out of the process.
Right. That's exactly right. There may be some other reasons along the way, but it's very few who actually drop out of the process. So it's usually, it goes from 1,200 to 939, for example, on this slide, 939 to 344, and this is just going through the process, through the written exam. That's how many passed the written exam and went to orals, and from the orals, that's how many passed, and to the physical abilities exam, that's how many were invited, and the 57, for example, is how many passed at that point. Now, on the BIDL exam, now there is another physical abilities test out there. It's called the CPAT, and it's fairly new. It may be 3 to 4 years old. The BIDL exam is a validated exam. It reflects what we do here in the Glendale Fire Department, and it compares closest to what we do. And as I get to the pictures, and I'll be able to talk through the series of event that takes place during this exam, it's important to have that understanding. What I tell any person who is preparing themselves to become a firefighter, you need to connect with the firefighter. You need to get yourself physically in shape. You need to go to any one of these local community colleges and pay $2 on a Saturday afternoon and run that course as many times as you can. That's what it costs. It costs $2 to $5 to go to Rio Hondo College, Mount Sac, Santa Ana College, Oxnard to take the test. It's a Saturday afternoon and $2. At the seminar, I deliver that similar message because it's another part of the process.
Are you saying that these colleges run these basically pre-tests to get people prepared for the actual test, or they run tests every week and you could go and take it as many times as you want to take it?
They do both. They actually have classes that you can register in to prepare you, and they run the test, and you can take the test over and over and over. For example, when we gave our most recent physical abilities exam, February 10th, I think it was, and I was there talking to some of the candidates, and some of them had told me they had just taken it the day before at Rio Hondo for $2 because they wanted to make sure they were ready. At the seminar, we gave them plenty of information and plenty of locations. You got to gauge where you are. You got to really prepare. You have to really take the steps that are necessary, whether it's a male or a female. So you can run it every weekend if you like. You can do that between $2 and $5.
Do you have a certain period of time to pass that ability exam, or do you just kind of say, I can go this week, okay, I'm ready to take it now, so that becomes the official test?
We put it as a part of our process. So we bring the entire group that passes, that moved on, that are invited to the physical ability. I'll call Mount SAC and say, I'd like to register 75 students on February 10th, and we're going to come down. So the staff there administers the exam, the college staff. There's not any Glendale Fire people there administering the exam. I go and watch it in case there's an issue with the equipment malfunction or whatever it may be. They like to have someone there to make a decision on what can take place. So I go and watch them, and I'm there to assist with any of those decisions. If a helmet comes off, Mount SAC says, well, you failed. I say, well, helmets come off in the fire service, so, we can run them again, for example. That's just one example. But the staff at the school does it, not the Glendale Fire Department.
So that February 10th date, that's your official test?
Yes.
How far in advance did these 57 people know that, or however many of them were going to take that particular?
Well, at the seminar, I told them. I told them all at the seminar. And
when was the seminar?
December 15th? December 15th.
Approximately 2 months?
Approximately 2 months, and we actually had a fitness trainer there who gave them a fitness workout and things to do to prepare themselves, as we've done in the past. That information's posted on our website. You go to any firefighter, they'll tell you the things you need to do to prepare. If people make connections, what happens then is they have a connection in the fire service, so what they'll go do is they'll go and meet someone, and they'll let them put on their turnout jacket, for example, and feel what the weight is like. A lot of it's just learning the techniques and doing it.
Okay, proceed. Oh, I'm sorry. You have a question? Commissioner Perry? Oh, why don't you proceed, please?
We also did a firefighter-paramedic specific recruitment in, I think it was about May '07. And you can see across the top what our numbers are. And we only yielded 4 out of that process, 4 paramedics to the academy. Very challenging because it's a skill set that not very many had, and that's why the numbers are 74, and they went down from there. We gave an oral with a paramedic performance assessment to see their paramedic skills with a few different scenarios that are basic for LA County EMS, and that's how the numbers dwindled down from there. And you can see we had 2 white males, 1 Armenian, and 1
Undeclared.
undeclared. Okay.
I think we have the same problem here under the black. There are 3 applied, and somehow 5 passed the physical. Is that a mistake again?
That's a mistake. That's the same number that was moved over from column number 2.
I see. So that should be 0
Yeah.
and 10 on the what? No, it can't be 10 on the
Well,
what.
it should be 5, and that should be a 0.
Well, then it doesn't add up to 14. 5, 5, 3, and 1 adds up to 14. If 14 passed the physical exam.
5 undeclared.
5 undeclared. That makes sense.
Manya? It's possibly 5.
There's a mistake in this, so that needs to be fixed.
Okay.
We don't know. Let's not.
You're right. That's right. We're not going to guess. Manya, is that something that we can figure out now while we're here?
No.
No? Okay, we'll get it fixed. Go ahead. Proceed.
And those 4 were placed in this most recent academy that we graduated. We did 2 academies between '05 and '07. One graduated in just December '07, and one graduated January '07. Those 4 paramedics were placed in that second academy. And this is the current list we have in progress right now with the process that we're currently running. We started off by accepting 1,000 applications, and you can see the numbers across the top on how they reflect, who showed up to the written, how they went from the orals to the physical abilities. And yes, obviously, there's room right here for some improvement, and I've looked at this group, and I've talked to a number of them, whether it was at the seminar or at the physical abilities exam. And I think we have an opportunity here with some of the character of the people that we've met so far who are currently in backgrounds. And that's what eliminates a number of them also, is when they enter backgrounds. Right now, we haven't made those final decisions. They're in backgrounds right now, and the ones who come out of backgrounds will be going to Chief Soros for the final interview.
Let me ask another question along the line of the last one. Where you start out with number of applicants, and then a period written, and that number drops.
Right.
Again, is that because there's something in the application that disqualifies them?
No, that's kind of the big mystery. They came in, they'll turn in their application, we'll give them a test day and a test time, and we tell them to show up for the exam, and they don't show up. It's not necessarily something that eliminates them on the application or anything.
I have to make a comment.
Go ahead.
I have to.
Yes, you do.
We have not a 1-year statistics, but a 5-year statistics here, which is, I told Chief Gray 2 years ago that I will never ask a question for you to answer in 1 year, but I'll ask you to answer some tough questions in 5 years and definitely some questions in 10 years. I think you guys all remember. So it's 2 years ago. But when it comes to females, we have some major problems. And I want to ask you, what's the problem? I mean, I can't answer that, but look, you agree that these statistics are pretty miserable.
Right. I agree we have a lot of work to do.
Forget the physical, because I think that to bring to physical, I think will not only offend people, but I think it would not be an answer. In my opinion, physical alone can't be the answer. Are they passing the physical in other cities in Southern California? If the answer is yes, the city of Glendale is failing female recruits. Why? Now,
Let's find out about other cities. Does Burbank, are you familiar with Burbank?
I'm familiar with Burbank. They have one female firefighter.
Within, why don't we stay in this 5-year, is that a female firefighter they've hired in this 5-year
No.
cycle?
No.
Did that female firefighter go through the BIDL or Bixel or whatever program?
I don't know what exam she went through. I think she went through Burbank specific. It was physical abilities exam. I think they did one at their training center. I think that's what she went through. But
the city of Pasadena.
Pasadena has several. I don't know how many, but more than Glendale. Yes.
Do they use BIDL?
I don't know.
Glendale doesn't have any, so everyone has more than Glendale.
We have one.
Yeah, one firefighter?
One female firefighter.
How many black firefighters do we have? None have been hired in the last 5 years.
Right. Approximately 5.
Actual firefighters? Or actual fire department employees?
Firefighters.
Firefighters or above, I mean, are they like captains or whatever?
Right, yeah, firefighters.
Obviously a chief.
Captain, firefighters and above, right.
You included yourself in that.
I did. And I'm
Just
proud
want to be
of
sure you
that.
didn't forget yourself.
No, I wouldn't forget me. No.
Is there any explanation that we're harping on females? I'm harping on sex. I just, it's beyond me how a city this large go 5 years without hiring one female, an African-American applicant. And I don't know if anybody's got an answer for it. It seems pretty obvious to me what to have. I don't like it.
Well, Mr. Coleman, and I'm just going to speak to you with all honesty.
Please do.
Some of these...
'Cause I'm gonna look into this.
In openness. Some of these processes I directly administered, and I went through each and every applicant and each and every background and shook hands and talked to many, many applicants, African Americans, Hispanic, Armenian, and it comes down to when we get to the point where we have an opportunity and we enter the backgrounds, and that becomes a very challenging point. We have a background process that's very important to us, and there are things that go on in an individual's background that would eliminate them. We have had the opportunities to hire all of these different minorities across the board. We have had those opportunities, but there were significant issues that we ran into in their backgrounds that have stopped us from doing that. And we think it's very important to make sure we look at a person as a whole person, not just as a minority or a woman or anything else, because we've had an opportunity to do it, and I personally have had to make a hard decision on many and tell them they have failed our background. We have had some opportunities, but I believe it was my duty to make the right decision for the city of Glendale and eliminate people from the process. I have done that personally.
But let me just, no, let me talk. I haven't talked that much. But
Back to me.
you have, I'm going to let him stay with the minorities,
Okay.
the blacks. I'm going to stay with the females. You have, are you saying, for instance, 2007, 2008, we had no females that passed the physical. So there's no, from a female standpoint, we don't even get to the background issue, because that doesn't get there till after the physical, correct?
Right. That is
Let's
correct.
look at the 2007, or 2005, 2007 black number. We had one past the, so the idea, until they get to the physical, okay, that is, only then do we get to the background.
Right.
Is it a fair statement to say that of the, I'm looking at 2005, 2007, of those that, 57 of the 1,251 passed the physical ability exam, and we hired 15. One of those was black. None were female. Is it a fair statement to say of the, from 57 to 15, that all of those people failed the background, or is it just that most did, some had better backgrounds than others?
Most failed the background. Most failed the background. In the 03-05 process, I believe one of our top 5 candidates was an African-American male who was, on the surface appeared to be a quality individual, and not saying that he's not, but he had some major issues related to his background that we couldn't look past, and we shouldn't look past, and we don't think that you would want us to look past. And we've had, not females, and the females have not gotten to the backgrounds. They have not gotten past the physical abilities exam. But that's a challenging exam, not just for females, but for males. For example, on February 10th, we went to the, we did that, and we had 6 males fail the background and 3 females. So it's, both sides are, it's challenging for both sides.
February 10th was the physical.
Right.
I thought you said, I think you just said background, so you meant the physical.
Right.
Yes.
How many total firefighters in management do you have right now in the city of Glendale?
In management.
Sworn personnel.
Sworn personnel.
$193.
And out of 193, we have 5 blacks and 1 female.
Yes.
And how many Armenians?
There's 3.
Do you have the breakdown of Hispanics and Asians too, or
I don't know.
now it goes into?
Yeah, those are the bigger numbers, probably.
I'd like to see that breakdown, maybe
Get it every 6
couple of
months.
weeks.
They get us every 6 months we get up. Don't we get 6-month reports on the statistics of what our firefighters as well as the police?
Internal Audit prepares an annual report, which is on its way. They're working on it.
Sorry, continue with your presentation.
Okay.
Well, just to...
I'm sorry, Commissioner Coleman.
We got, I'm looking at, kind of skipping ahead here. I just want clarification on past due performance evaluations, and I'm not going offline here. Fire department has 227 salaried employees, and I presume approximately 35 of those are non-sworn employees?
That'd be approximately correct.
Okay.
That number are all employees, and we're talking sworn person.
I understand, but we're dealing with salaried employees, sworn employees. Just trying to get a handle on the mix or lack thereof within our fire department.
Do you have a number of, well, I guess that would be, we obviously have females that are non-sworn employees, correct?
Yes.
You know how many we have that are non-sworn? That doesn't
Female
mitigate
non-sworn.
my concerns, but it's just a question to...
10, 20, including dispatch center, at least 20, including the dispatch center.
All right, why don't you continue?
Okay. Firefighter recruitment between '03 to '07. You can see our overall numbers there, and we've talked about those a great deal already. On this one, unless you want me to go over them again, I'll just go ahead and move on.
No, please, yes, please move on.
Okay, some of our challenges. We recognize the physical abilities test is one of our challenges. We recognize that. Our biannual testing process, we feel with those 2-year testing processes that the list becomes a bit stale. We can't hit the refresh button on an annual basis, and that's one of the things that we're looking at now. The overall testing process, it's challenging. It's a challenging process. We recognize that, and I talked about one of the steps that we have taken to help prepare future firefighters with the seminar, for example. We have low turnover here in the fire department, but over the next several years, we think that turnover is going to be a lot greater. And the applicant pool, as we looked at the numbers, the applicant pool isn't very large, and that's in the different areas that we're looking at. So the physical abilities test, we talked a little bit about that. Some of the exercises, these are some basic, fundamental exercises that a firefighter would be expected to perform. And I'll walk you through a series of slides with the instructors on the course going through. It starts off basically with a couple of hose pulls of 150 feet. And this is a continuous operation, but it's a continuous operation where you're not running in between events. The instructors are telling you to walk to the next event, walk to the next event. So you start off with a helmet, a turnout coat, a BA bottle, gym shorts, and tennis shoes to run the course. And you'll pull a dry hose 150 feet around one of those blue tubs that are filled with water, and then you'll pull a wet hose approximately the same distance and through a descending tunnel, and have to put the nozzle in the hole right there. You come up on the next series of exercises, you have to extend a 24-foot extension ladder that's mounted on the structure, and that's one of the pieces of equipment that's on every fire engine that we have in town here.
Chief Scoggins, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I have to interrupt you. There's a matter that we have to get to.
Okay.
And I am very interested, and I want everybody to hear about this. So in my mind, I'm thinking we're rushing, and I want to be able to hear specifically what's going on in this physical abilities test, because from my standpoint, I've designated Mr. Coleman for the blacks, but you've designated me for the females, and I'm going to have some questions, and I want to vet this out. So I need to go to one other item. It's going to be a closed session item, so I'm going to unfortunately invite all of you, other than those people that are here, on the item in the closed session that is item B, 12B, public employee dismissal. Everybody else, but you were going to come right back to you.
Let me turn it off or leave it on?
No, that can be left on. Okay, and we are going to conclude that. We're not going to shortchange that presentation. And I have 3 cards from the public. Everybody's going to speak.
So, Mr. Chair, you're recessing the closed session on
12B.
Item 12B, public employee dismissal?
Yes. Yes. Sorry. But one of those is your cards, Ms. Welling, and you will get to speak. I want you to be assured of that.
Turn off the microphones. Sandra?
It's 12B, not 12A. Wasn't it 12B? 12B. We have not taken 12A. No reporting out on 12B. Chief, continue on the physical abilities, because you were doing very well, and I want to give it my undivided attention. Go ahead.
Okay. As we progress through the physical abilities exam, this is, once again, going through a series of events that a firefighter could be expected to perform. This exam is kind of a baseline type of an exam, and as we concluded, I was walking you through the exam. We've gotten to the portion where the candidate would be expected to extend a 24-foot extension ladder. The event after that would be to walk over to this simulated pitch roof, as you would put a ladder up on it and walk up to vent the roof with a tool in his right hand, and you would turn around and walk back down. And as you progress through the course, you'd walk over to another prop. It's a spring-loaded punch that you would strike 30 times with the sledgehammer. There's a variety of events that we use sledgehammers for, pick head axes for, so this is a simulation of that. Once you're done with that, you move over to the dummy drag. There's a dummy laying on the ground, approximately 150 pounds. Expected to pick that dummy up, walk around a series of cones approximately 20 to 25 feet apart, and then lay the dummy back down. And all these events are performed in a continuous manner. And once again, like I said, it's not you're not running through this course. It's at a fairly fast walk, but the events are what we're really looking at. As you see the slide on the left, the picture on the left, it's a 24-foot extension ladder. That's standard in the fire service. Every one of our apparatus carries one of those. The expectation is that our candidate should be able to handle that, pull it off the rig. It's at the same side as same height it would be on a fire engine. That's the height that candidate or that instructor demonstrating pulled it off, walk around 3 cones and put it back. Once you complete that task, you walk around the tower and you would pick up a hose pack. In that hose pack, the candidate would carry it up to the 5th floor in the tower, bring it back down to the 2nd, put it off to the side, and simulate doing a room search. Candidate would bring that hose pack back down, lay it on the ground, pick up those 2 air bottles to the side, take it up to the 3rd floor. Once the candidate's on the 3rd floor, you'd put your bottles to the side and pull the hose up, 150 feet of hose up on a landing that would simulate some of the different hose lays that we do here in the Glendale Fire Department, as most fire departments do. These aren't trick evolutions, it's just fundamental bread and butter type evolutions. And then the instructor concludes with some final instructions, answering questions, things such as that. We talked a lot about our females having challenges on this, and we had one female who actually completed the course. This is a timed evolution. It's not a pass-fail, but it's a timed evolution, and the time to complete the course is approximately 9 minutes and 34 seconds. Jeez. The average candidate completes the course between 7 and 8 minutes. There's a few who really excel, and they'll hit in the low 6s, but most of the group is approximately 8 minutes, and that's not running from event to event. It's just a series of events. And it's important to note that each of these events, the candidate will be doing similar events in the academy, and for longer periods of time, or 8 or 9 minutes. They may be throwing ladders for longer periods of time, or pulling hose, or doing breathing apparatus drills, or doing SCBAs. A breathing apparatus bottle will last you approximately a half hour, and you could be working the entire half hour on that bottle doing these tasks. So that's why we choose this type of physical abilities exam. So where are we going in the future? We're going to continue with our current recruitment efforts. We have a plan to make a presentation to the Glendale Unified School District to expand our public safety curriculum into all 3 high schools. Right now, it's only in Hoover at the Hoover High Public Safety Academy, and we're going to make that presentation to the school to see if we can get it in all 3 schools. Annual firefighter testing. We think it's important to start giving an annual test opposed to a test every 2 years. And that gives a candidate who's been preparing for the last year an opportunity to take the test. See, what happens is, as people remain on the list for a long time, or we don't test for a long time, well, a lot of other fire agencies happen to be hiring, and you never know where you're going to hit it, so they normally start taking tests all over the place until they finally hit the test just right and they're successful. So we're going to try to give our tests annually can refresh the list. And that way, if a candidate didn't do so well the first time, well, next year they can try it again and do it again. And the candidates who did fail the physical abilities test, it's important to note that they aren't removed from the list when you get to that point. They remain in their location on the list. So our plan is to hire another academy in the fall. So all the candidates who did not pass the test or who are not hired on this current process, they'll have a chance to work on the things that they had problems with, and we'll take them out there again to do it as a part of the process and walk it through it again. But they know what they need to work on. I talked to each and every one of them individually, male and female, who had problems at the course while I was there that day. I told them the things that they need to work on. I made some recommendations or some suggestions, and if they follow those instructions, I believe they will be successful. Create local partnerships to sponsor students to the Verdugo Fire Academy, and that's through Glendale College. Once again, we found that once a person goes through a community college type of environment in an academy where the learning really takes place, it really gives them the hands-on experience that they need to be successful. So we need to go out and continue to be active, as we're doing with the Rotary and as we've done in the past with the Armenian American Chamber, to go and create more of those type of partnerships to help some of the kids who may not be able to afford it to get into the academy to offset some of their financial cost. Now I'd like to open it up for questions.
We've certainly asked some questions, and we've had the public be very patient, so I think I'd like to hear from the public. And then stick around, Chief,
Yes.
because obviously there'll be some questions. Carol Welling.
Gentlemen, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
5 minutes, by the way.
I've lived in the city here for about 37 years. For about the past 20 years, I've asked the same question: where are the women firefighters? I have gotten the same answer year after year: we're working on it. And then they proceed to segue into upper body strength and the old hose. But the bottom line is, when I spoke to the interim chief, Biggs, he said, you're going to hear a lot of words here about challenges for women, challenges, but they're really just excuses as to why they don't hire women. There needs to be women in the fire department. The fire department is a wonderful facility. They have great salaries, they have great benefits. Women should be a part of it, but they're not a part of it, and they haven't been a part of it. For the last 20 years, I've been asking the question. Now, please, paraphrasing, Don's here tonight. I said to him, Don, may I use your name when we discussed it? And he said, yes, you may use my name and you can use my conversation.
Go ahead.
He's here tonight.
No, go ahead. Continue with your presentation.
Okay. But please, my time has been...
I make note of the time. You're not losing your time.
We're all aware that women are in the military. They do their basic training. They have more than hoses and body training to go through. So it's just ridiculous that they come up with the same old arguments. Now, I'd like to draw to your attention two cities. San Francisco has a large segment of women firefighters, and the fire chief is a woman. San Diego has a large section of women, and the fire chief is a woman. I think that this city needs to think about getting a woman fire chief. I was talking to, I think he's a captain. I'm very hedgy on titles, but and Mr. Howard asked me, what do you think? I said, we need a woman fire chief so we can have some, eliminate some of the hostility that's here in Glendale. There's a real problem here in Glendale. And for Mr. Stoggins to stand up here again and say, we're going to continue with the same plan, well, I'll come back in 20 years and I'll be saying the same thing, as will he. I think that basically the fire departments across the state, they all have the same criteria. I checked with Don on that. The criteria is the same. The physical requirements are just the same for Glendale as any other city, and yet other cities continue to progress and continue to hire women. So there's a problem. You have to face it. There's no progress here. There's no progress. Can anybody, I'm speaking specifically about women. There's no progress here. And I don't see where there's going to be any progress as long as the head is in the sand saying we're going to continue on with the same course we've had and think that you're going to hire women. Because there's just one woman now, and when she's retired, then they're really going to have a problem, because where are they going to find one? Why does a woman want to come here when there's just one woman? Where is the camaraderie? I can go through the litany of all the things that they've done. They've already done that here tonight. I've asked the human resources person to give me all the things that they have tried to do, and they're saying them there again tonight, and yet there's been no progress. There's no progress here. And until the fire department and this commission and the city council recognizes that you're on a course of 20 years where nothing's been done and no progress is in the foreseeable future, and for you to stand up here and say we're going to continue the same course, it's futile. I mean, I guess the only reason why I'm here tonight is it makes me feel better that I'm getting it off my chest, because I will bet money that I can come back in 5, 10, 15 years. It'll be the same problem and the same excuses and no progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Welling.
Question for the speaker.
Yes. For who?
Ms. Welling.
Go ahead.
Ms. Welling, first of all, thank you for your comments. I think you've made some very good points. If you were sitting on this commission tonight and you heard this testimony and Carol Welling was talking to you, what would you say? What would you suggest to make the difference, to start a different direction? What would be some of your suggestions?
Well, thank you. This is Captain? Chief. I get all these titles mixed up. He asked me that out there. And I said, you've got to go you've got to have a little committee or a little delegation, go to San Francisco and go to San Diego and say, how did you do it? What's the key?
Why do we need to go there? We got Pasadena, and we know have a few. We got Burbank. Why should we pay somebody to go to San Francisco?
True, but, you know, they do have, like, in San Diego, one-third, and I got these statistics from Don, because I've brought it up before. One-third of the whole firefighting is women in San Diego. So there's a plethora of women out there that want these jobs. They're good jobs. They're
Well, I don't know about
jobs.
a plethora. We looked at the applicants. There are not a ton of applicants.
Well, but you know
there are women. You're correct.
Bottom line is they don't want to come to Glendale, and you've got to figure out why. But so I said try and figure out why we have this problem. There's got to be more. The city has to be more receptive to women. And also, when I first started my asking of this question, I included the Armenians, and I see it again tonight. There's not any Armenians really to speak of either. We have so many Armenians in the community.
Well, you look at the applicants on that, you'd see that the applicants, we have like 28 applicants, 22 applicants, so the applicants are very low.
Right. But
That's
why?
not true in the female capacity, may I add. But I don't want, you've heard me, I'm not denigrating your comments one single bit, because that's my issue tonight.
Mr. Gantis, I want this committee to know that I have felt for the first time in 20 years that people are listening.
I didn't even listen to you before doing it either.
And I want to give a special accolade to Matt Doyle. I have spoken with him. He's given me time. I have spoken with the Don Briggs, who's given me time. I have spoken to Joanne, who we all know is the single firefighter, who's given me time. And I guess this is my last hurrah on it, because I really don't see a lot of hope without some real changes in attitude about what can be done. But I want to thank you. I thought all the questions that all of you asked for, I was very impressed. I was very impressed.
Everybody out there is listening to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Philpott.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Bruce Philpott. I'm a resident of Glendale for 40-plus years. Also a retired police chief in the city of Pasadena. Also commanded one of the divisions of the Pasadena Fire Department for several years. It still is difficult to grapple with. What we are doing here tonight on your item number 8, because there is an unwritten culture in the fire service, and it's to hire your own. Chief Scoggins mentioned just a little while ago that one of the things that they try to do is link a firefighter with a recruit, give him some help and assistance through the process to become successful. And that is the way the system works. The system is not about throwing out a massive net to see who you might get. Within that net, they know who's going to flush out. It's a system that works for them. Some fire departments have been able to put aside that culture, and I think the previous speaker just addressed that in San Diego and in San Francisco. But here, as in most fire departments, the culture still really is intact and prevents more modern, visionary practices of our fire service. Who fights fires in Tokyo? Tokyo has a lot more flammable material in their building construction than we do, and people who average about 5'6" and about 130 pounds fight fires there. Here you saw an example in the Recruit Academy, not the Recruit, but the Application Academy, an applicant trying to pass a physical fitness element, having to pick up a 24-foot ladder by him or herself. The fire department today, at the scene of a structure fire where that equipment is needed, you'll have anywhere from 20 to 50, oftentimes 100 firefighters in just a few minutes. I cannot imagine of an event, whether it's a ladder or ventilating a roof, where a single firefighter would be performing those functions. In law enforcement, we do not strap on a SWAT gear and instruct applicants to go in and extricate a hostage. We don't ask them to do that. We train them to do that, and then we watch them perform in the recruitment requirement of that period where they are, and what's the term, where they don't have a probation status, and they look at them. The Glendale Police Department hires women, and sometimes they move through their reserve program first. They have an opportunity to view their performance over the course of years before they may offer them a position in a regular career position. In Pasadena, I'm very familiar with that. The model of recruiting women and minorities in the 80s was extraordinary, and they got a national award for it. It took them about 12 years, but they increased women represented in their fighter positions by 600% during the course of that time. We saw a wonderful power presentation up here. Glendale Fire Department is very good at PowerPoint presentations. But it would be better to hear how they have researched successful recruitments rather than giving you an array of a process that we've heard maybe, and we've had one monitor for over 20 years. Recruitment models that produce results that are appealing to qualified people, women and blacks and Armenians in this community, is hollow. The presentations of effort without results are worthless. They'll keep doing the same thing with the same results. There's an opportunity. There's a new fire chief recruitment here. There's an opportunity maybe for this commission to express an interest that the new fire chief have a proven record of building a diverse workforce, demonstrated ability to build a diverse workforce. We need to take a fresh look at the way that we...
Sir, your time is up.
My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Stavros. I didn't see any listing for Greeks. They're not on that, I guess.
Well, I'm Greek and you hired me. I'm only 5'5", and you hired me also. So, and here's my PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Chris Stavros, Captain, Glendale Fire Department. I'm president of the Glendale Firefighters Association. I want to touch on just a couple things if I can real quick. First off is I would highly suggest that, and I would invite you personally as GFFA's guests to our next Recruit Academy to come down. Put on the gear, pick up some stuff, and see how it is for yourself. Because there's nothing like putting that stuff on when it's 90 degrees outside and seeing what it's like. Okay, it's not easy, but I think that maybe it'd be really useful for you, and we would love to have you down there. When it comes to the physical agility that Glendale's offering, recognize that the agilities that we're offering now are standardized. The exam that we're using is probably used by 100 departments in the state. Candidates have the ability to go to Mount San Antonio College or Santa Ana College, where I went, and take a one-unit class that specifically gives them the opportunity to practice the agility that we offer as many times as they want for as many semesters in a row that they want. It's totally different than 12 years ago when I was testing, and Glendale had a separate test, Burbank had a separate test, Riverside had a separate test. You had no idea when you went there whether it was going to be 13 minutes or 6 minutes. So the agilities, in addition to getting easier than they were, not going to mince words, there also never been more access for those candidates to practice. And if a candidate cannot practice cannot pass very easily that physical agility exam, they will fail our academy. And it's not fair to them, because they're going to quit their job, they're going to turn their life upside down, you're going to take the job from another person on the list who would have got hired, and they're not going to be successful. When it comes to women and minorities in the fire service, here's the thing that I really think it boils down to, is women and minorities who are interested in public service and who have the physical capability to do the job are highly coveted by all agencies. They can write their own ticket. They can get hired by the FBI, Homeland Security, Coast Guard. The military wants to keep them and retain them in the military. They can get hired by LA Fire Department, City Fire Department, LA County Fire Department, and Long Beach. And they will take those jobs in San Francisco and San Diego before they will take a job in Glendale. Upper mobility, more overtime, and in general, more pay. I had a female in my academy. As a matter of fact, I had 2 females. Burbank's only female firefighter was in my academy class. We had a female in my academy class, Jan Chatelaine. She left after 2 years and she went to LA County Fire Department. She's a captain there now. Why? She was able to make captain faster. She was able to make more money. They have unlimited overtime in those agencies. So that we're bigoted or that we don't want females, it's ridiculous. It's not true. It's a very small minority of people who are interested in the profession and who have the physical ability to do the job, and they're getting hired elsewhere. Look at the other departments that are our size. Torrance, Santa Monica, etc. They have 1 or no females. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't continue to recruit. I think what Chief Scoggins said about recruiting athletes in college is a darn good way to go. But you got to get them interested, and then you got to keep them. Because LA City will send people through their academy 2, 3, or 4 times to keep them. We can't afford to do that here. At least I don't think we can. My other comment I'd like to make is there was a very good article about this in LA Weekly. And I'm certainly not going to compare LA Weekly to the New York Times or the Washington Post. But once in a while, they have an article that cuts right to the heart of it. And I would like it, if you'd be interested in reading it, I'd like to provide that to either Matt or to Sandra for you to read it. Because it talks about this very issue and about how LA City has spent an enormous amount of money trying to get women in the fire service, and they've been dedicated to it for decades, and it's been a total failure. And I think it's really, I don't agree with everything in the article, but I think it's really a timely article about that. And the same holds true with minorities. I mean, to imply that we don't want to hire a certain type of people in this city is just not true. I mean, we have a deputy chief who's a candidate for fire chief who's black. So just, assuming that's it?
Thank you. Yes, Captain.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Again, I'd like to invite you out to an academy. We're starting one April 28th. If you'd like to come, we'd like to have you. You could get firsthand look at it. Thanks again.
Thank you. Are there any other, we have all our cards are completed. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Yes.
First of all, I wonder if Mr. Biggs would be willing to talk to us about the comments made, or his position on this.
The comment that she made was close to what I said. I don't believe in excuses. I don't believe in all of the reasons that we don't have women firefighters. There's no excuse for it. We have done everything that I can possibly imagine. We have brought people in who are women firefighters from other agencies. We've used Joanne to the hilt, and to the point of embarrassment, because she's gone out for us and as an ambassador to women firefighters. She's recruiting within Glendale with women firefighters, and we failed. And I consider that there's no excuse for it. There is reasons that Chris talked about, a few of them, and everything. But bottom line is, we haven't got women here, and that's all there is to it.
So what are we going to do about it?
I don't know.
It's easy to say we failed. Ms. Welling and I've listened to Ms. Welling a lot of years, and I don't know that we've talked, and I don't generally agree with her, with all due respect. But I do tonight. I do tonight.
Yeah.
And she's right. And you're saying it. Yeah, we failed. But I have heard. Let's be clear about one thing. I don't want us dumbing down our standards.
No.
But if Ms. Welling is correct that San Diego does this, if Chief Scoggins is correct that Pasadena's done it, and my question to Matt is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, Matt, in the charter, or Ron, in the charter, this commission's responsible for overseeing the testing portion of it. I want to know why they're getting them and we're not. If it's money, I want to know that. If they're doing a different standard that might work, I want to know that. And that's what I want to know. I don't know if my fellow commissioners want that. But to let you go to say we have failed, and to have Chief Scoggins, where is he, who I respect enormously, who basically I do agree with you most of the time. Sorry, Ms. Welling, but we've done you have not done everything you can because you failed. Failure is not an option. I think Tiger Woods said that. But and every one of these has been at the physical agility level. Now,
Not everyone.
Yes. Every one of them was at the physical test.
Female?
Yes.
I thought Chief Scoggins indicated that a couple of them were washed out in background checks.
No, not females.
None?
Blacks.
None?
I can give you history also.
Yeah, none.
We've hired a lot over the years, well, not a lot, several over the years that have not made it through the Recruit Academy also, back in the late 90s.
Again, though, Commissioner Abkarian, who unfortunately had to leave, put it correctly. We have a 5-year period here we're talking about. We're not doing a 1-year period. There's a 5-year period, and there's a big zero for past the physical. Now, there's not a lot of applicants. Maybe it has to do with money. But just maybe, we need to have an idea of why is Pasadena successful? Why has Burbank been successful? I'm not sure I need to know why San Francisco or San Diego. They have not?
They have one.
They have one. Pasadena has how many?
Pasadena, for history, Mr. Philpott's memory is different than the facts, but for history, Pasadena had a civilian paramedic program that had a lot of women in it. They converted those paramedics to sworn firefighters, and inherited a number of women into the process with that. They have since parlayed that into having more, which I congratulate them for. And they wish they had more success also, but that's Pasadena's history. Burbank has had one, and she's been on about 10 years. We have had one, and she came on in 1989. I know the effort we've gone through to expose this department to women, to make special efforts, special training programs, probably illegal in this day and age of where you can't do targeted recruitment per se. But we've done these things in the past. I'm looking for any kind of direction. We have gone to other agencies. We brought their women in here and talked to us and told us what we need to do, and we still have not been able to bring women into or be successful in our testing process.
But it's the physical. I mean, that's what we're seeing here. It's the physical that's doing it.
It is in this case, yeah. But other places, women pass, 4 other departments, women pass the same physical.
Which departments are those?
All of them that take it.
San Francisco, San Diego.
No. The physical exam, and Joanne assisted us in the development of that exam. The mid-'90s, it was accepted.
This is the BILTS or the Blitz or the...
It's called the BIDL exam, but it's a state standard exam that was developed by all the fire departments in the state of California, or a lot of them. There's another test that's since come on also, that's also a standard, validated test. We had our own test in 1995. We brought 3 women through that process. One of them made it through the recruit academy. I'm sorry, one of them made it through the recruit academy. 2 of them did not in the mid-'90s. That test is validated by thousands and thousands of people having taken it. And thousands of people get hired. San Diego probably uses it. Santa Ana and all the Orange County cities use it.
The BIDL.
The BIDL test.
How about Torrance?
I don't know what test
Torrance.
it is.
You know, kind of what I'm thinking.
I don't know if there's any women in Torrance.
And I took out Torrance because that's one of our 12 cities that, for survey of salaries, I think. Isn't that right? Am I correct? Torrance is one of them? And my thought pattern is that those are cities I'd like to know a little bit more about what they do in terms of the testing for that.
But we can get you a listing of all of the departments that have women firefighters, what their numbers are. I'm sure women in the fire service can give it to us because we go through them for the expertise a lot of times also. We send people to their conventions. We've sent people, by people I mean just not Joanne, but other male firefighters also to recruit at their conventions. I can find out exactly what departments use the BIDL and which departments have women firefighters. And to a certain extent why they've been successful in that process, although that's conjecture. And there's opinions on why people have been successful and why people haven't.
Why don't you share them with us?
Yes,
well, we've talked about some of them. The opportunity in bigger departments for promotion, the opportunity in bigger departments that women like to work with other women, as we talked about. San Diego has a lot of women. I don't know that it's a third, but I think that's probably around that. San Francisco and San Diego have women fire chiefs. They like to work in bigger departments. They are prime, like Chris said. They are recruited. The good candidates are looked for through the colleges. They're recruited into these big departments. We don't have a recruiting department per se that can go out and do that. We do try. We hit the academies, and we have instructors in the academies. They're instructed to target, prime candidates for this position. We do those kinds of things.
Well, it seems to me that I would like to hear, and Matt, you tell me if I'm wrong, that we could use the 12 cities we survey. We consider them more on a par with us, so that would make a fair comparison.
I'd be glad to put that together.
Let me finish, please, Chief. And exactly what you've said, but more importantly, we have Captain Stavros and yourself saying, well, they want to go to this, and if we're losing out because of money, or we're losing out because of a recruiter. We found out today, Todd's here, aren't you? Yes, you're still here, Todd. The police now have a position for a recruiter, and they're actively recruiting to fill that position. Well, then maybe this civil service needs to tell you, you need to do the same thing. We need to have a full-time person that's there that's just doing recruiting. And maybe it doesn't have to be a sworn personnel, so we can get somebody that's HR knowledgeable, and so therefore this perceived, whether it's actual or otherwise, how did you put it, Carol? perceived hostility or mentality against, which it may be. I don't know that it is. I don't know that it isn't. I frankly probably don't think it's there. But nonetheless, we have failed. We go back to your words. We need to be we need to be examining this. And why is Torrance or Long Beach or San Diego or however the cities are that we use, why are they successful? And maybe if you follow up, why have you been successful? Have your PR, your HR people follow that up. You don't have to say, well, Captain Jones of Torrance said this. This is what we've been told. Here's quotes that have come to us.
And the fairest way to do that is through the HR departments, not from the fire departments. The HR departments would probably give us a more objective opinion of why the fire department has or has not been successful in this area.
That should be included in your report, but Matt, would that be all right if isn't Manya assigned to the fire department? If we had, however you do this, Matt, that's not my job to tell you how to do it, that the HR people work with us and they include it in that report, and that we give it some time, and we make sure that, I want Ms. Welling to be sure she knows about this, because she's obviously very
some
passionate.
Communication with Ms. Welling.
Well, okay, make sure she's there. Because she brings, I picked up before I even listened to her. And again, I've picked this up. There's just simply, maybe there is a reason. Then maybe we need to say, okay, we can go and pass the hat if we have to, so that we can take these females down to the thing 5 weeks before, 4 weeks before, 3 weeks before, and let them do the $2 or $5 classes and push on them. Maybe have Ms. Welling help you do that. Ms. Welling, would you be willing to help? The point is, we need to say we're going to take that next step to be sure that if it's the physical, because if in fact I'm hearing, Ms. Welling or anybody, that the Biddle in Torrance and they have 5 women firefighters and they're going through the Biddle, then somehow I'm thinking that the females that are taking the test here are not prepared. Then we need to address that. Why aren't they prepared? We need to get them prepared. We need to be extra special there, because that obviously is a concern, because it's a failure on our part. That's the kind of
You've thrown out Torrance. We don't know what departments.
No, I'm making
up
names. I just know Torrance.
Yeah, I understand.
No. This is law.
I should be able to get from, I assume from Mount SAC anyway, the statistics on who passes and who doesn't pass the exam itself.
That would be another good thing to have. What do we got in terms of numbers over and this 5-year period we've used it here. It's a good period to use. Yeah. Commissioners, want to add anything to that, Commissioner Coleman?
Well, Chief, one of the things that really struck me that you said, we have one female firefighter. Females like to work with other female firefighters. But just, on the statistics that were provided today, firefighter recruiting from 2003 to 2005, we had 120 female applicants. That's not the whole period. That's just 2 years. 2
years, yeah.
And none of them made it. Okay? And none of them made it for more than 5 years. So an excuse of, we have a small applicant pool that isn't working for me. If you've got 120 female applicants in a 2-year period, none of them make it. They're and we keep going back to the Biddle. I don't understand why, no matter how much larger San Francisco is, that 1/3 is it San Francisco or San Diego?
Or San Diego.
1/3 of their firefighters are female, and somehow managed to pass the Biddle, where none of our applicants have in 5 years.
That's what we're going to vet out.
Yeah, and I just, Chair Gantis says I don't think it's because of gender bias or some type of hostility towards females or ethnic minorities in the fire department. I'm not pointing fingers at you or anybody else. Please believe me, my background is civil rights and labor law. And, I can smell a rat a mile away when it comes to this kind of thing. And if it's systemic within the department, we need to vet that out as well.
There are some numbers that dispute that. I don't want to get into it too much, but when you get to the oral board,
And,
for example,
I'm not. Believe me, honestly, I'm not pointing fingers, but I mean, it just.
Well, we have a responsibility
The stats are
give you that
staggering.
information accurately.
Yeah,
We do.
yeah. It's. I don't know if it's I'm not sure what it is.
We're going to find out what it is.
We're going to
Commissioner
do that
Devine.
for you.
Well, I agree with your approach. I wasn't sure whether you were asking the fire department to give us the report or human resources.
Yes, both of them.
Okay, well, I agree partly. I think perhaps the whole thing should be within the purview of human resources. To me, that would be a much more independent view of the whole thing. Quite frankly, I've heard a lot of excellent testimony tonight, but a lot of it was confusing and conflicting for me. For example, the fire department is saying that the physical agility test is the make or break as far as the females go. But when you look at these statistics, for example, 2005 to 2007, they started with 51 females. Only 2 were invited to or made it to the level of the physical exam before they washed out there. That means only 4% of the total population of the female candidates even made it to the physical. They didn't even take the physical. So that raises a red flag for me, is why did 96% of them fail before they even got to the physical? And that falls into the purview of, did they fail on writtens? Did they fail on orals? And then when you look at the male numbers in the same categories, it's different. A lot more of the males made it.
Yeah, but there were a lot more applicants. I think.
Well, no, but I'm talking about percentages. When you talk about percentages, there's a difference there that raises questions. So I would suggest that, again, we have a report, but I'd like to see human resources do it, and I'd like to have them address these issues. Also, I believe Ms. Welling brought up some good points. When I asked her, what do you do, she said, go to some of these other cities and find out why they're successful.
That's what I want.
And let's break the mold that we're in now and see what they're doing. We'll talk to San Diego, talk to San Francisco. So I would say that human resources, in conjunction with the fire department, or with the help of, prepare this a very comprehensive report that will address all of these issues. I think Mr. Philpott made some excellent points. Ms. Welling did. The other thing that confused me, you heard initially from the fire department that the physical agility test was the make or break for the females, but yet when the representative,
Captain Stavros.
Captain Stavros spoke, he said it was the money issue. And so that kind of confused me that here we were hearing from the same department, but one part of it saying other cities are more competitive because they're offering more money, and our city is saying, or part of them is saying, we're not doing it because of the physical agility. So all those things, I don't know the answers, but I think those are things that needed to be looked at and addressed in a very comprehensive report. And at the bottom of the report, I would like to see some suggestions from human resources to address these problems, concerns, and come up with some ideas on a new course of action.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, we will prepare that report. Hopefully, we'll be given some time to do so, because it does entail some.
I was going to give them until 2 weeks.
Let me just say.
What do you need? A couple of months, probably.
Probably a couple months.
Respect.
If I could just say, I mean, I've listened to everything said here tonight, and I certainly don't want this to all fall upon the fire department, because we do operate the recruitment function jointly. Ultimately, we are responsible, human resources, for the recruitment process, the testing process. Certainly, the manpower of the fire department is necessary in order to complete that, but I don't at all want to shirk any level of responsibility. I do want to echo what Chief Biggs did say, that we have tried many, many things, and I'm not going to say we've tried everything, because that would be impossible. But I do want to say that we in HR, myself, my staff, we believe firmly that this fire department and every sector of our public employment does need to be more representative of the people we serve, whether that's gender-related or ethnic-related, and certainly agree with that. And we will always do our best, and that's what I told Miss Welling. That we have always made the effort and the attempt to diversify our city workforce, and whether we've been successful or not is debatable. We do. Fire department, we have had certainly some challenges, but I do need to respond to the window that there might be some type of hostility or discrimination or bias. I can tell you that every person who's involved in these hiring processes, from the staff that we've worked with in the fire department, to my staff, to Ms. Hunanian, to everyone, every step of the way, there is nothing but 100% support for diversity and diversifying our city workforce. And that's my philosophy, that's the philosophy of my staff, and I know it's the philosophy of everyone involved at the fire department. We have some exceptional people working very, very hard to try to meet these goals. Unfortunately, we have failed in some regard, but I do want the Commission to appreciate the effort. I know that doesn't matter to Mr. Philpott or perhaps Ms. Welling, but it should matter to you, because you know us well, and you know the efforts that we make, and you know how hard we work. So I do hope you appreciate that. I do want to say one other thing, and I want to be cautious here about any specific efforts that are made on behalf of any particular ethnic group, or particular gender, or anything along those lines. There are certain legal restrictions, and Mr. Braden could perhaps elaborate more, but anyone who's lived in California since 1996 would certainly recall Proposition 209, which prohibits not just discrimination, but also preferences in hiring, in testing, and employment practices throughout the city. And what that means, or throughout any employment situation, and what that means is that when we try to seek to diversify our organizations, we cannot focus on one single group, one single ethnicity, one single gender. We have to be fair. And I hear the comments being made that we need to, what specific efforts are we going to take to address the problem with women or this particular ethnicity? We really have to be cautious about that, because it's a fine line between outreach and being fair to all different groups and focusing on one particular group. I feel that we can't have a pass on that when we do have a situation where we are underrepresented, and I do feel a little more comfortable making those special efforts in the areas we're underrepresented, and that would include females, that would include Armenians. But I caution you that we don't want to get ourselves into any legal difficulties and violate Proposition 209.
Okay, I think we have our marching orders. Yes, Ron?
Yeah, one comment, and I was going to comment something Mr. Doyle touched upon, even if he hadn't have said it, but Mr. Doyle is correct. Under Prop 209, you cannot give preferences to any group over another group. So, if, for example, you want to subsidize physical agility test or subsidize the training for that, by whatever method you want to do that, you have to make that available to every candidate or every applicant who is reaching that stage. And while you can, the law does allow you to have focused recruitment, outreach for minorities, women, cannot in the hiring process show any preference for any particular group even if they're underrepresented in, it's been clearly upheld by the courts in interpreting Proposition 209. So, as Mr. Doyle indicated, we need to be very careful when we approach this area.
But Mr. Braden, if that's the case, we approved here last year, and we are hiring under police recruit bulletins specifically geared toward Korean Americans and Armenians. How do we justify that?
Mr. Chair.
You can let me answer the question. You can have legitimate, bona fide qualifications for a job that require a specific skill that would allow, touched upon, talked when we approved the jail individuals who have to search women or search men. And clearly it's inappropriate to have a woman search a man or a man search a woman coming into custody. And so that is a legitimate, bona fide job qualification that is recognized by the law and which you can do. When we talked about the Korean or Armenian speaking positions, it wasn't that you'd hire an Armenian or you'd hire a Korean, it's just that the applicant had to be able to speak that language. And once again, those are legitimate job qualifications that are required of the job and required of the position, are legitimate and therefore pass constitutional muster.
Perfect. I think I want to, we have a lot more to go. Have we not beaten this to death, Mr. Devine? What did you want to add?
I want to beat some more. Two questions. One, based on what we've asked Mr. Doyle to do in terms of this report, do you see any conflict with 209?
No.
I think what we're asking is, basically, other agencies they're going through. We want to get to the bottom of why we can't and they do. That's a legitimate question, isn't it?
It's a legitimate question.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to make sure, and Mr. Doyle touched upon this, and he made a very impassioned comment that there is no hostilities and there is not an unwritten culture in the fire department, and he wanted us to be aware of that. And however, based on comments that were made tonight by some of the speakers, I would like, if possible, to include in your report to address that issue, whether it means some of your staff interviewing fire personnel and whatnot, to again confirm that that situation does not exist in our fire department.
Certainly, and again, my comments were directed towards those who have been involved in the process. But I could certainly do some type of interviews with people throughout to see if that opens this up to more of an investigative nature, which I'm not.
Well, if I could just interject, I think that an investigative approach might be the way to go. Excuse me if what I said sounded like there was an innuendo of an impropriety or alleged discrimination going on in the fire department. I'm just looking at the raw data. We haven't hired a black in 5 years in the fire department. We haven't hired a female in the fire department in 5 years. Other agencies have. And if we've got to go the investigative route as to why, this has been going on ad nauseum, then I think it's appropriate. Chair Gantis, says, okay, we're going to have a report and we're going to find out why and we're going to vet it out. I think, there's no sense in stopping just at raw figures. Vet it out. Do an investigation. Find out what's going on. I don't understand. I just don't understand, regardless of the geographical location or the size of the fire department, why you can have in the same state, California, one agency where 1/3 of the firefighters are female, and we have one. It's
Mr. Coleman,
yes.
You may be correct, but I think our first step is to have this report and find out what we're talking. Let's get the facts in front of us, okay? We have maybe, and then without due respect, I'm sure Ms. Welling is somewhat, but I want actual facts here. The investigation portion of it, if in fact it's going to be done, is our function, not the function of the HR staff. We have the right to ask to investigate an issue revolving around the testing. Am I correct, Mr. Braden? And we can, and we have a right to put people under oath. We have a right to subpoena whomever we wish in front of us to find that out. But I think that's kind of putting right now, maybe that's what we're going to do. Right now, that's putting the cart before the horse. I think the horse right now is, let's see exactly what we're talking about with these 12 cities. Let's get some of those figures. And you know what? Would you like to expand this to women and blacks? I know this has been an issue for you also.
Absolutely.
Okay, then we're going to make it women and blacks, because we've had 0 for 5 years on each, and some of those comments that we've made, and let's hold off. I'm not saying you're wrong, Mr. Coleman.
I want to be perfectly clear here. I am not accusing anybody of anything. All right?
We just want facts.
What I want is to know why there hasn't been a female or a black hired in the fire department in this city in the last 5 years. And sure, I'm more than willing to take a look at the raw data and compare what 12 other cities have done, over the last 5 years and see what their stats look like. Okay, more than willing to do that, and then we can start the investigative process if we have to. That's fine with me. But I'm just this is not something that's going to go away as long as I'm on this commission.
I disagree with that. I agree with your concept of the investigation. I'm with you 100%. But to make it a piecemeal thing, and I agree, Mr. Gaddis, we need the facts. And to me, part of the facts is there a problem within the department that's preventing the hiring of these people, or the...
Isn't that what that's part of the investigative process.
But I'm saying it shouldn't be separated. I'd like to see it all done at one time, and I'm not sure what you meant why the commission can do the investigation.
The commission does the investigation.
Well,
because we can put people under oath. When you want to ask somebody a question, they have to be under oath, and we're the ones that can do that.
Well, I wanted a more, I guess you call it informal method, where we ask human resources to conduct the initial investigation to see if there's anything out there. If it turns out there isn't, then we don't need to go further. If there is a hint that there is a problem, then we can go into it further. But I would like this report to include the whole 9 yards, talking with the other departments, getting all the facts, and as Mr. Coleman very adequately put it, to do the investigation to see if we have a problem within the ranks. And I'd like to see that all done at the same time.
Wouldn't necessarily call it an investigation, but they could certainly inquire. Because again, the investigative function is ours. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Braden.
One additional point on what's been termed an investigation. I would caution the commission that you take great care if you enter this particular area, because whatever the investigation entails, if it's a general investigation with some summary comments, I don't have a particular problem with that. If it becomes an investigation of a particular individual or individuals where employee X or employee Y is hostile towards a particular group or whatever, then I think you're getting into a
discipline,
tender and sensitive area, because now you may be involving the requirement for Skelly rights, disciplinary action, and of course if this commission is involved in the investigation and it leads to disciplinary action, then this commission becomes the hearing body of that particular matter. So very careful.
Now, that isn't what I had in mind at this point. What I have in mind is, and I think Mr. Doyle summed it up pretty well earlier, he said that
my feelings on this matter.
Yeah, but let's be cautious. So we need to give them specific direction of what we want them to do in that regard.
Well, let me ask Mr. Braden, the scenario I just gave, do you see that as a slippery slope?
Well, potentially it's a slippery slope, yes. Depends upon how it's handled, but I don't think as long as you don't slide down that slope, there's any particular legal impediments to it, but it is a slippery slope.
I think we want to put it this way. Because, again, if we start going there, now we've possibly identified some individuals. Clearly, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. Braden, we can have some of the personnel, including Joanne, the one firefighter. The problem is you don't know that you want to do that, and she's not able to do that without us investigating under oath and in private closed session, where you get a lot more information. But I think what we want to do is maybe have them do some of that interview and report to us whether there appears to be this underlying hostility, and make a recommendation whether we should conduct an investigation or not. Ron, I think that's maybe more appropriate, because now we're not getting into individuals. We are basically getting some feedback and a recommendation from staff. Does that make more sense and lead us away from that slippery slope?
Well, I think it does. Once again, it's still a slippery slope, because if comes out that somebody has an opinion that there's hostility, and then you may want to pursue that, and thus you go down.
We're not going to hear that.
Unless you go down that slope. It may be, Mr. Chair, as you suggested, that you want to get the facts first, and then if you're satisfied with the facts, you don't have to go further. If you're dissatisfied with the facts, that is the analysis of why cities are more successful than Glendale, then you can enter the second phase of that by examining it more closely, by conducting interviews.
And I kind of like that myself. Again, what he's saying, the key with us doing the investigation, Mr. Devine and Mr. Coleman, is that number one, it's done in closed session, okay? Number two, we can call in whomever we choose to call in, and it's closed session between us and that person.
Okay.
And that's
I'm starting to agree with you. I think we've beaten this into the ground. Let's get the raw data first, and then if we need to, go further with any type of investigative procedure, we'll deal with it then. I mean, it really seems like that's the best way to go at this point.
I think so too. Mr. Devine?
I disagree with that, but I'm outnumbered, so that'll be the vote. But I believe that we can get all the facts in the world one way or the other, and have Matt spend months doing all this, and we'll be sitting here looking at them and still not know whether something's happening in the department, that those facts really don't mean anything.
Then if you feel that way, you can make a motion. The investigation...
I feel that way now before I get the facts. I'm saying part of the facts have to be this situation that we're discussing, and to put that off to the end, I'm going to have the same opinion. So I'm just trying to save some time, I guess. But I'm outnumbered, and if you want to do it piecemeal, that's fine with me.
The piecemeal portion is, if we're going to do an investigation, we're going to do the investigation. My feeling is, if I comes back here that Torrance, I keep using Torrance, but I just know they're on the list, has hired five firefighters out of 2,000, women firefighters out of 2,000, and what their application portion is, okay, that data may say to me, and they're used the biddle, is that the name of it again?
Right.
The biddle. Then I'm saying, then maybe that's there. I'm then going to say, you know who I want? I would be instructing staff in closed session, if we're going to do an investigation, that they subpoena each one of those firefighters from Torrance and or the recruiter from Torrance, and we can do that. And they come in closed session, and they tell us what it is. The HR staff doesn't have that ability. They're not going to be able to afford that kind of protection to them. That's what our job is. Am I misstating that, Ron?
No, but just one point of caution, once again. It's something, if and when we get to that point, I would have to carefully research whether we can go into closed session. Closed session under the Brown Act is limited to individual disciplinary actions,
I think,
appointment of employees. So it would have to be something that we would have to take a look at if and when we get to that point.
okay. Can't see why it wouldn't. Well, anything else? We have our direction staff?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Chief, did you want to make any further comments? Have we made ourselves clear?
Of course.
Let me try and summarize here. We're not happy. How's that?
I got
2
it.
hours of stuff that we're not happy.
I got it.
Okay?
Yep.
Chief Howard, since I don't know how long Chief Biggs is here, but he's always here. He just kind of hangs around. So you guys are going to be, you and Chief Scott, because you're hiding behind Chief Biggs. Get up here. I don't want you hiding behind it. Did you get the message that we're unhappy?
I completely understand the message.
Did you get that, Chief Howard? Okay. This is a significant issue, and it's a significant issue. Now, it may be legitimate. I mean, it just may be. But to say, today, we talked about this, I think, a couple of years ago, that, well, we failed. At some point, we have to have some success, and we need a plan for success. But right now, we're going to see why others are successful, to maybe in this process of vetting this out, we'll get some ideas. That's another thought, of doing something differently. Yes, Chief?
The only thing I'd like to say is if this is successful and we are in fact successful in getting women in, I love it.
Thank you.
We do need to do that.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. What is next?
Agenda forecast.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the agenda forecast is before you. Next meeting, we will have the quarterly report on advertising budget expenditures and a brief report on methodology for selecting outside hearing officers. Now,
I think that because now that we have done what we've done, I would like to put the methodology for selection of hearing officers off to May 14th, if we could, please. And put down there on March 12th for the next agenda that that's a short meeting because we have a hearing. Sorry, yes, Mr. Coleman?
Just one comment on item number 7, report of hourly employment. Right down at the bottom of page 2 where it says the next report will be submitted to the Commission in August of 2008. I noticed that on our agenda forecast we've got 2 meetings in August 13th, and the other is August 27th, and they're both blank. So I would like to have that report plugged in either on the 13th or 27th
will do.
of August.
Okay. Anything else on agenda forecast?
No.
Mr. Doyle? What is next?
Reports and information as to employee performance.
Coleman?
Okay. The report from Human Resources indicates that the City Treasurer's Office has no past due evaluations. The Community Development and Housing, no past dues. Development Service, no past dues. We're talking about evaluations here, employment evaluations. The Fire Department, 227 sworn officers.
No salaried.
Excuse me, salaried employees, no past due employment evaluations. Glendale Water and Power, no past due evaluations. Parks, Recreation, and Community Services, no past dues. Planning, no past dues. The Police Department, once again, no past dues. And Public Works, no past dues.
Good, thank you. What is next?
Civil Service Commission and our staff comments.
I just,
Commissioner Coleman.
yeah, I don't want to go backwards, and I know we're taking up a lot of time, but with the agenda forecasts, we take a look at report that I just summarized here. Once again, it states Note that first notices are evaluations with the effective dates of December 2007. Second notices are evaluations with effective dates in November of 2007. Third notices are evaluations with effective dates of October of 2007. I know Debbie Mallon has explained the situation, but I'm still a little confused as to how we can have first notices on evaluations that are more than 70 days late. I just don't get it. When it's my understanding, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, if an annual evaluation is 30 days late, it's 30 days late, they've missed a target, and they should be getting a notice. I don't know how it can be extended to 70 days with just one past due. I just don't understand it, and I would like us to agendize
Having somebody explain?
having somebody explain that to me or to the commission once again.
Mr. Chair, I could explain it to you
Okay.
without agendizing this.
Can we do that?
Are we still under, we can do it under past due employee evaluations? It's on the agenda.
Well, we
Okay.
actually moved beyond that. Are you asking us to reopen past due employee evaluations, Mr. Coleman? Yes, so we are reopening
Yes.
past due employee evaluations.
If Mr. Doyle can explain it to me in 2 minutes.
Or less.
I shall do so. The reporting system that we have, that Ms. Mellon and Ms. Jagaspanian have, tracks the evaluations each month, and regardless of when that evaluation is due, it could be on the 1st of the month, the 15th of the month, the 20th, or even the 31st of the month, the evaluation does not officially become a first notice until not the very next month, but the beginning of the month following that late evaluation. So you could have someone whose evaluation was due, let's say, January 30th. That becomes past due evaluation on March 1st. Now,
Could you repeat that?
if it's January 31st that the evaluation is due, it becomes its first past due notice effective March 1st.
Okay. I've
Okay.
got that.
If that's,
I got that.
and if that was due on January 4th, it's the same thing.
Got it.
The past due notice becomes March 1st. So there's a range.
Worst case scenario, you could have a past due first notice 62 days.
That's correct. That's the worst case scenario.
Report shows that there's first notices that are going out. You know, it was due 77. Oh, I get it, because now we're into the into the next month, so it can actually extend to approximately 89, 90 days.
That's correct.
So now, March 1st,
Okay, I got
that first notice becomes the second notice.
Okay.
And it's February 27th, not March, Saturday, we're there.
So I understand it now. I just disagree with the concept.
I think it's easier, otherwise it becomes an issue, because there's so many different days in the city. That's what we...
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm
What is
finished.
next?
Session.
Okay, this is, we were going into a closed session on item 12A. Mr. Braden, I do anticipate that we're going to be reporting out of closed session.
Okay.
Oh, did we get Civil Service Commission staff or comments? We did? Okay. With that, we will be going into closed session on item 12A, please.
And as you have always said, Mr. Chair, this will end the televised portion.
This will end the televised portion. Thank you for staying up till 8:22 tonight.